So one of my pet peeves is that I hear people say, well, people are held responsible to God. They're held accountable to God. And I'm like, no, that's not accurate. The Bible never says the word responsible or held accountable. It might be in your English translation, but it's not the nuanced in the Greek. And people think I'm some kind of idiot. And in my church, like my pastor, Jim Brown, Grace and Truth Ministries, you can go to Jim Brown, Grace and Truth Ministries. Lots of Greek teaching, lots of in-depth Bible study there. He'll say, for instance, only God's children are held responsible or accountable. And the reason is because of what you're about to see by a Greek professor. See, it's not just me. People think I'm nuts, but you're going to see a Greek professor verify what I'm saying. There's nowhere in the Bible that says men are held accountable in Greek or responsible. It doesn't exist. In the Old Testament, there's responsible, but it's never used. Wait, did I say that right? In the Old Testament, in Hebrew, there's accountable, but it's never God to the people. It's like a man to a man. But in Greek, there's never such a thing. And the nuanced difference is important. Because all these free will people like, well, you got to be responsible to God, so you got to have a free will to be held responsible. No, it's not held responsible. It's not accurate. So what you're going to see is this Greek professor from, I think, Baptist Seminary, something like that. I used to say Dallas, and somebody corrected me. It's from Baptist. It's a YouTube channel called Daily Dose of Greek. It's something I watch a lot in my Greek study, because I study Greek every day, and this is one of the things I'll watch. It's really good. It's helpful. And so this professor, this Greek, what do you call him? Scholar, right? He's going to compare the English, and towards the end, this is pretty short. He's going to confirm what I'm saying, and then on the other end of this, I'll comment again.
Going to go through several verses in Romans chapter 3 over the next few weekend editions, and we're just going to compare an English version with the Greek text, and we're going to ask if actually looking at the Greek text helps us to see the meaning more clearly. Now, let me say to start off that all the English versions we're going to look at are great, right? The New International Version, the NIV, is a great translation, but it's very difficult to carry over accurately all the nuances of the original text. I thought it might be fun to look at a few verses together in this way. Let's look at the English translation here first from the NIV. Now we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be silenced and the whole world held accountable to God. I'll read the Greek text, oidemen. De hati hasa ha namas lege, tois into namo lale, hina pan stama frage, kai hupadikas genetai pas ha kosmos to theo. Okay, now it might be fruitful for you just to pause the video and compare the Greek text with the NIV translation and see where you think there's potential loss of nuance. I'll just point out a few things myself. You'll notice the NIV translates lege as says and lale as says, and that's fine. But in Greek, lege more naturally is used to introduce direct quotation, in this case referring back to that concatenation of quotes, many of them from the Psalms, all these Old Testament texts that show that all of humanity is under sin. So whatever the law says, and all these things that the law says, which Paul just enumerated, it's speaking to those in the law, that is, to those in the realm of the law, which I think is correct to say those who are under the authority of the law, those who are under the law. But if you look at it very literally, those who are in the law, right? We know that whatever, as many things as the law says. Let me clarify what's going on here just to make sure you're following me. So there's from oida. Now we know that as many things as or whatever the law says, and again, this word used more commonly for direct quotation just makes more clear he's referring to all these things that the Old Testament has said that he quoted right up above that shows clearly that humanity, Jew and Gentile alike, are under sin, right? It's speaking, and whatever it says, it's certainly, we could say, it's certainly speaking to those in the realm of the law. When the law speaks, it's certainly speaking to those under the law, so that, right, subjunctive, there's an aorist passive subjunctive, there's an aorist middle subjunctive, so that every mouth would be shut, right? It's a picture of someone standing before a judge who has no response, no reply, nothing you can say. You're guilty, right? And that is a question here as to whether hupadikos is rightly translated held accountable. Mark Seifert, in his helpful volume, his monograph, Christ Our Righteousness, has some discussion of this word and has convinced me that really the idea here, I don't think it's intended that way.
Okay, here's what I want you to look at.
Righteousness has some discussion of this word and has convinced me that really the idea here is guilty. That held accountable is a little soft, sounds a little soft. I don't think it's intended that way, but the picture is your mouth is shut, you have nothing to say, and looking at the broader use of the word hupadikos, and he cites some very good discussion, I think, in TD&T, Theological Dictionary of the New Testament, the work edited by Kittel, and to show that the nuance here is guilty, right?
Okay, now that's what I want you to see. Now, you see he says, he pronounced it hupadikos, I'll say hupodikaios. It comes from the word hupo, which is where we get like the word hypodermic needle, under the skin. And dikaios is judgment. And notice he's going to the TD&T, the Kittles. This is what we do in my church all the time. We teach to read the Kittles. We teach to read McClintock and Strong's. These other things, other than just lexicons, to go figure out what a word means. You can't do that. I made a video about that of another Greek professor saying you can't do that. And so then notice the guy was saying, well, he was convinced. You know, here is a Greek scholar that used to maybe think accountable. And then he was convinced by doing what my church teaches and what every person should do. You got to go to outside sources, learn the custom, culture, and figurative speech. So he says it's guilty. It's literally under judgment, not accountable. And here's a Greek professor saying so. You see that? So when I'll say, no, not everyone is held accountable. Only God's children are, because held accountable, responsible is like someone that's like your child. You didn't do it, now you're punished. Now you're going to be punished for not cleaning your room. Narrow way, death to self. Here it is again. I keep saying it. Narrow way, death to self. You didn't clean. Now I'm going to punish you. That's the whipping. That's the agape. See, it all fits in. That's God holds his children responsible. The others are just judged, guilty, not held responsible. They're just guilty. And they go to hell. They have no chance. Right? The children, quote, have the chance. Because God is with them, working them, the willing and the doing, holding them responsible. That's not for everybody. You see that? So it's not just me. So when you're out there and you're saying held responsible, that's not accurate. That doesn't exist in the Bible. That terminology doesn't exist literally in the Greek. It's guilty or under judgment. It's not even the word guilty. Well, you could say it's guilty because it's under the judgment. Theos is a magistrate, a judge bench with 3 judges that always agree you're guilty. Under their judgment, everyone. It is, in nuanced in Greek, it is not held accountable. It is judged guilty. Guilty. You see that? I just wanted to make that point.